Brendan, the founder of anatomē. It's great to see many of you come on this lovely bright day. I'm introducing Lisa, who is here to chat to us all. Lisa is a journalist and a writer, and then Gabriel, who is the co-author of the Modern Apothecary that we're here to talk about today, but more broadly to talk about well-being in the context of the modern world and the modern apothecary.
Yeah, over to me. So hi everybody, it's so lovely to see so many of you here today, and it's such a beautiful, beautiful day in London. I hope it lasts over the rest of the summer. So these guys know a thing or two about wellness, which is why I'm here. I really resonate with their philosophy and their ethos, and what they're saying and doing is very much how I look at beauty. The way I see beauty has always been through the sort of mind, the body and the spirit connection, and I also think it's a lot about inner beauty. So what I've always said is, if the inside feels good, then the outside will be okay, and it's very much about being kind to yourselves. Now, I've worked as a beauty journalist for over 20 years. I've been at Marie Claire for 18 years, which is a very long time to be at a title. And I've always believed that beauty is self-care and part of a journey to well-being is a deeper way of looking at beauty. And well-being's always been very important to me, and it's become even more important when I became a mother 7 years ago to my daughter Eliza. And I decided to move to the countryside and move back to Gloucestershire, moved back to Stroud, which is where I'm from, and we love spending time in nature, and I really sort of truly understand the benefits of nature. So for example, yesterday I went for a run. It's the first time that I've been for a run in the last couple of weeks because I was looking after my daughter yesterday. I'm a single mother, and it's impossible for me to just bolt out the door when I feel like going for a run. So I dropped her off at school and I went to the woods, and like I said, it's the first time in 2 weeks, and I just couldn't believe how beautiful the woods looked. The leaves were so luscious on all the trees, it was just so beautiful. The birds were singing, it was warm, and the warm air was bouncing off the wet grass, and you could smell that amazing smell of that, of nature, and I just felt like I was in heaven. I felt like I was in paradise, and it was just, I was moving my body, I was running. I felt my cortisol levels were reducing. I went for a swim in the lake, and which really helps with resilience and stress. And then I went home and I made myself a protein shake, and this is what I do most mornings when I'm at home, when I'm not working in London. I made myself a protein shake, I put loads of berries in, I put loads of green in, and then I got on with my work. I took my hour for lunch, I sat outside and had some boiled eggs, and then at the end of the day I made food for Eliza when she came back from school, and I had a beautiful anatomē salt bath, and I went to bed early. And the point of me telling you all of this is that these are conscious choices that I make on a day-to-day basis, and I feel like it's very, very important for everybody to make these to take these like intentional actions, and it makes me feel good, it makes me feel well, and it makes me feel like I'm the best mum that I can be to Eliza, which is really important, because when I asked Eliza, when I was thinking about this talk, what makes her feel well, she said, "You do, mummy." And so I'm like, okay, well that means I have to be happy and balanced. So if it makes her feel well, I need to be well first if I want her to be well. So it's a big responsibility to have, and but I think that everybody needs to put their well-being first. So well-being for me is about being healthy, well, happy, fulfilled, having a sense of purpose, being able to cope with life's challenges, and then being proactive and focusing on enhancing your lives physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And like you guys have said in the book is absolutely fascinating. I've been reading it for the last couple of weeks, and like you said in the book, it's a positive cycle we can generate and nurture. So it's, we have to be able to do that for ourselves. And being a beauty journalist for over 20 years, I am so happy to see that wellbeing is being spoken about in the industry much, much more. And we've still got a long way to go with education. But after 20 years, it's such a positive move forward that beauty is now being so connected to health and well-being. Which brings us to discover anatomy. So Brendan, I want to start off with your inspiration and your vision. So what inspired you to start anatomy and reimagine the concept of the apothecary for sort of now in this day and age?
I think my starting point was in my career. I had done law and finance at university, but I opened a restaurant in Shoreditch on Hoxton Square, which was a restaurant in the early 2000s called Crew. And it was a place it was a Mediterranean relaxed warehouse restaurant and we were kind of innovative at the time, with a wood-fired oven and doing sharing platters and natural wines and the idea of communal eating. And I was not a chef, but I started to learn about ingredients, about flavor, and you would have food tastings every week. You're negotiating and exploring with chefs. And you're creating a scene and you're listening to people and creating a service and an environment that essentially it's all about making the guest happy when they come on a Friday evening from the moment they walk through the door. So I started to learn that journey of the experience that you need to deliver in that environment. But more importantly, learning about ingredients and educating myself. And chefs are challenging and restaurants are hard work. And I had a fascination with apothecaries and chemists, particularly St James's and around Mayfair in London. And there was a little shop across the street that was empty, and it was a really cute old-fashioned shop, and I kept looking at it thinking, oh, what could I do there? And I thought about a chemist, because I like chemists. So when you go to Europe, you go into beautiful chemists, and they're extraordinary, and here they're not so special for the most part. But chemists require pharmacies legislation and rules.
Yeah.
So I landed on a barber shop. And so the barber shop is not a chemist, but the history of barber shops lean into that environment when they did deliver lots of different services besides having a haircut. And really brought that in, and we started to discover apothecary brands like D.R. Harris, Santa Maria Novella, Acqua di Genova. So what intrigued me was collections that had history and depth, and then I learned to start how to make formulations, learned about skincare and composing shaving creams, balms, oils, and particularly perfumery. And so then when I had exited that business, it was thinking, well, there's a modern way to approach the apothecary. Sometimes the apothecaries we do love are kind of moving more towards commercial scent. You know, some of the names I mentioned are really, really perfumeries now. And when you create perfume, and this is a long answer, you basically look at the nuances of scent, you look at the history of each extract, and you want to bring that to life in a more relevant way. So that's something we want to do with anatomy, is whether it's essential oils to help you sleep, scent to help you perform, or botanical extracts alongside science-based ingredients that underpin your immunity and your well-being.
Yeah.
And we wanted to create that environment that is a kind of the trusted apothecary that you come to for advice.
Yeah.
And that's where we have landed with the apothecary today.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So what are your main thoughts on some mainstream beauty?
I think everything has its place. We see every consumer coming through the door. For me, we're looking at natural extracts. We're looking at that starting point. If you don't sleep well, you're not going to be happy, and your skin can be tired. If we're talking beauty specifically, you can be stressed, it can be revealed in your face. And I think starting from hydration, starting from nurturing is really where we're coming through with anatomy. So we were really surprised when I created anatomy that sleep would become this anchor for the brand. And I guess you sleep every night, obviously, so the essential oils have a role to play within that. But it goes beyond that. It's about a beauty regime and a system that you need to adapt before you go to sleep. Often too many of us fall into bed watching TV and you're expecting your body to go to sleep. So things that we've worked out in the book and Gabriel had thought through was that time in the bathroom, that time of the practice before you're going to bed, using your skincare products that are relevant to you, so that by the time you get into the bedroom and hopefully maybe use the anatomy oils, there's a much more relaxed process. So when you were talking about having a salt bath, I think in the context of beauty, it should be a wider story and a bigger story than just specifically around hyaluronic acid and a lot of the trending conversations we're seeing coming through on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So on to the book now. So Gabriel, what motivated you both to write The Modern Apothecary? You're exploring wellbeing practices from today and from the past. So can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, I told a few of you this morning about it. So Brendan and I have been working together for 2.5 years, and it's all about brand pillars and what the focus is. How can we make it clearer that we are an apothecary brand? How does that come to life? And he came to me once, we were working a little bit late, and he said, if we were to write a book, what would it look like? Can you sketch it for me? And I was like, okay, well, so I got an old book that I had. It was a fashion book, because fashion's my background. And I said, I like this idea of talking about something modern and then establishing a link to the past. Because if you stop and think about it, everything we're living today is a reinvention of something that has existed in the past. And well-being is the same. So we started asking these questions. Why don't we write a book that asks and answers as much as possible the question of when did we first start exercising? What is the history of diet? Who went on a diet first? Who was that person? So, if you stop and think about it, it's been around for ages, and there are trends and fads, but the human need to feel better is inherent. It's within us. We want it. We want to feel better, and that stays. So then we said, okay, let's turn this into a book. Brendan, by the time it was a hypothetical conversation until he put me in front of a publisher, had a contract, and said, please sign here, and then we had to write the book. Luckily, he had a lot of information, and then anatomy from the product development, from the research and everything. We had these buckets of information that we needed to organize, catalog, and then complete with some more research, look into the past. So this book is everything that anatomy had researched, and a little bit more cataloged, organized, and turned into an easy to follow guide with some trivia around it to illustrate it.
Yeah, amazing. So can you explain the 5 pillars then? So there's sleep, balance, movement, focus, and diet that you look at.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain that? Do you want me to?
Yeah, I think we were looking what was also relevant to the community that we're seeing, and so sleep we've talked about, obviously gateway to well-being. I think balance, we even have a perfume named Balance, this idea of being anchored. A lot of people can feel increasingly overwhelmed, and I know what it's, you have a business, so sometimes when you feel slightly disconnected from your body and you're like, I need to be anchored.
Yeah.
So looking around that day and how to feel much more balanced and anchored, so we've been looking at those steps. Diet, really important, obviously, we all understand the balance there that needs to be achieved. Focus, we have a community that wants to excel and they want to do better in life, and so in a distracted world that we're living in, we often all know how hard it is to keep a phone away from our desk, or maybe reading a book, and I think I've left one out. Movement, of course, movement. So we're all talking about movement, and I think when we were coming up with the name Anatomy, it's really about connecting with your physical being. Often, we're thinking about physical movement, but we're also thinking about touching our bodies, being touched, being loved, loving ourselves, and I think that's something that's really quite important to me, is finding moments to move through the day, and it's celebrating a lot of that through the community we're seeking to build, whether that's through dance, performance.
what's important about the pillars is that if I ask any of you here, if we have a conversation and I ask about the pillars, how's that going? At least two of them actually could have slept better, or I haven't been exercising much lately. And it's 100% based on conversations we have with real people, because there is a bit of a deficit. You just talked about your great exercise after a week of not being able to. So it's not constant, but what the book tries to tackle is, yes, they are important. There's no pressure that you need to be that strict about all of them all the time and be perfect. You can, let it slip for a while and then you get back to it. Been eating very well and then you had a burger on Friday, that's fine. But being aware of these pillars, and then when something is not right, you can immediately identify, oh, that's because I haven't been exercising. I'm feeling a bit stiff today because I haven't been to the gym in 2 weeks. Summarizing, this is a bit too simplistic in a way of explaining, but once you're aware of them, you can create your own mechanisms. It's not a guide that you need to follow 100%. You can take things as and when you need it.
And I think in lockdown, I spent a lot of time talking to nutritionists, to sleep experts. A lot of the decisions that we make in anatomy are informed by professional advice. And so this idea of our mindset and developing a positive mindset, and as you were saying, conscious decisions has informed these pillars that we've developed, and this focus as a brand and what we're seeking to build.
Yeah. It's really interesting. And how did you link the scent then to these pillars?
Well, I think when we think of the five senses, scent is often the most dominant, and the one that we reach into to be comforted. So when I work with a perfumer, Anastasia Brochure, and so it's a really interesting process when you're creating perfume. And you're looking at the nuances of scent, you're looking at the topography of the landscape, where it's grown, the climatic conditions. And for me, that elevation of scent, whether it's food or perfume, is really key. It's something that connects with the neurotransmitters in our brains. It allows us to be calm. And scent can actually, it's not all about necessarily delightful scents. Scents can create all different responses. And so for me, it's something that was really important that maybe in the urban environment or how we move, we sometimes don't connect with that. So that's our underpinning as a brand.
Okay, and also in the back, there's 22 botanicals that you featured as well. So how did you choose those? Is it because of the health benefits? But how did you choose those botanicals?
I think it's both from a health benefit perspective and some of the signature ingredients within our combinations. So if you discover our sleep oils, for example, we're using 3 types of lavenders in our sleep oil. We've chosen frankincense from Somalia, and we've chosen black spruce from North America in our balance fragrance. So it's just light touch introducing ingredients to people, and also making them aware. It's a bit like a fine wine. When the taste is assembled in the correct manner, that's when it's delightful, and it's the same focus around creating scent.
This part of the book is quite interesting because you can tap in and out, but that's where I felt the apothecary conversation really came to life, because by the time you finish reading it, you kind of know a little bit about ingredients and what they do, and it's that knowledge that we pick up every now and then. You see a post about rosemary or a post about something else, but it's all there, and you're like, oh, actually, it makes you want to go shopping for herbs, or maybe incorporate that elsewhere. They're all in the anatomy formulations, but then it spreads a little bit. Avocado oil, all these things.
It is. It's about going deeper into the product so that you know about the ingredients and you're aware of what you're smelling, what you're putting on your skin, which I think is what we're sort of trying to get across now as beauty journalists as well. And so now I think we're going to look at the fragrances. So I think you have some fragrances on your chairs, and we'd love you to smell them, see what you think. And then, Brendan?
In the envelope there's scents, and I think I'm going to pick one of the scents because inside there are let's go with expression. So what's really interesting, when I was creating the perfumes, the scents, we really wanted to take extracts and funnel them into different targeted responses. So expression has a composition of extracts from the sea, sea moss, cypress. It's got the pines from the forest as you emerge into the ocean. And so when you're next to the sea or you're next to a waterfall, the atoms that are given off are helping you be at ease. You always feel really much better when you're at the coast. So when you discover the scents, and you can obviously when you leave here, you'll explore them a little bit more. When you spray expression onto the skin and just lightly smelling it, you're brought to the ocean, you're brought to that place where it's about being mindful, it's about expanding your rib cage, engaging with your diaphragm, and it's those kind of moments in the day that are helping. It's like a conscious decision to say, okay, it's time to pause, the day is too much, time to relax, and especially as we're working with a lot of people around living in urban environments, that's something I wanted to bring to the practice.
Yeah. So would you spray it more than once a day?
I spray it like a cloud.
All day, every day.
And what was interesting is in the world of performance, whether it's opera singers or musicians or sports people, they all use scent in interesting ways that many of us don't know. Like even the other evening we were at the Old Vic and the choreographer was telling me they create scents for the cast, or Anastasia, who we work with, I mentioned, created scents for the Royal Opera House for different performers. So this connection with scent to perform. So whether you're using our energy oil, which was inspired by a tennis player we worked with, so it's a citrus-based scent. That's the key. It's if you're using scent regularly enough, you will have a response. But it's about creating regular moments and systems around it.
Very interesting. So what does each of the ranges consist of there?
In terms of the new perfumes?
The products, the products in the ranges.
Oh, for anatomē, as an
Yeah.
apothecary, I think we talk sleep as an anchor, and there's 3 sleep oils.
So the sleep oils.
Yeah. Then we have our essential oils to our skincare, so highly absorbent, nurturing essential oils that improve elasticity of the skin and luminosity of the skin, and really important ingredients like aloe vera, avocado, rosemary. So we're developing our skincare collection. And we have our 5 or 6 supplements to anchor your physical well-being. And then the perfume is this new collection which we're very much excited, or I'd say parfum, which we're very much, that kind of completes the range and builds out the story of the brand.
Brilliant, okay. So what's everybody's favourites?
Is anyone smelling the sea? You like it fresh? Yeah, you've got the energy, which is a citrus-based fragrance. Then you have the expression, bring you to the coast, and then balance to anchor you when you're feeling stressed. And hopefully you will discover them through the working week.
So you've also got a holistic approach as well to your range. So yeah, like you said, you've got the supplements, but you have the teas and the home fragrances as well.
Yes, we do. And so I think one of the things that Gabriel likes to really was talking through is this idea of creating your haven and really building out your evening practice and nurturing the home environment. And that's something that you and I have talked about.
We've talked about it a lot, and we said creating your haven. It's quite funny because we're like, how do we? I think it was Brendan's question was, how can I say send your home without saying send your home? I think about organizing it and styling it and making it all like, okay, we don't work with materials. Let's create something a little bit more. So we said create your haven, and that's what it's all about. It's having that space that actually reflects your views, who you are exactly, and you walk in. As soon as you walk in, I think we all have that space in our homes where, whether you live on your own or not, you walk in and you look and say, this is me, this is my stuff that I love, organized the way I am, and then you put a scent that you get used to and helps you relax, no matter how bad or good your day was. And that returning to that place anchors you, helps you relax, reset those cortisol. So we named that Create Your Haven. There's a chapter in the book about that. Exactly that idea of curating a space to provide you. We're talking about internal in your body, what can I do, but also the the surroundings. We can't control everything. A difficult work environment, which we talk about in the book as well. You control it sometimes, but you can come to an amazing safe space where you say, okay, can you do that?
And I think that's where we have the teas, the candles, the room diffusers. So often I can rush in and I'll start cooking and I forget to put on music. I forget to light a candle. We feel so much better when we do that. So in front of you have the sleep practice. Well, the idea is to build out home practices, and I think this conscious decision to not reach for the phone, to making sure things are on quiet mode, to putting on whatever that is to help you relax, and that systematic approach that goes from 7 o'clock with your family through to the practice in the bathroom. And then I think that's where we're linking these formulations together. So Gabriel's talking about the haven, then you have a chapter where we talk about bathroom practice. And so that's often where you feel most comfortable. You close that door and you may, time out, but encouraging people to spend an extra minute under the shower, or to use our body oil and actually consciously think about touching your body. Maybe just looking more closely at yourself. I think, do you discover those moments or something that are important to you?
Yeah, and it's really important now with working from home. It's, I work from home 3 days a week, and I have that cut-off point at 6 o'clock unless I've got a celebrity cover shoot where I work 14 hours a day, which is ridiculous.
Oh, really?
But mostly I try to switch off at 6 o'clock, and I've got to look after Eliza and, cook her dinner and get her to bed and everything. But I just really try to make sure that everything changes. I put my laptops away, and I do light candles and incense and just make it a lot nicer in my home. And I sort of tidy up, and I'm like, right now it's like me time, and there's no clutter around, and so it is really important to have those set times, particularly when working from home.
And I think from my perspective, the apothecary often travelled with you when you're on the move, and you see those old-fashioned apothecary cases that are so intriguing, that were full of all different things, from the good and the bad. And how do you equip people to move through time zones who are struggling to sleep? And in Marylebone, we see that in our store there, where in a way you're making people, they seem so happy when they come back to you and say, I just can't believe I slept with, it kind of worked. And you're thinking, that's something that's quite powerful as a brand, to be able to enrich people and making them feel happy.
Absolutely. So you also have personal consultations there as well, don't you?
Yes, we do a lot with nutritionists, and then we're now building out to work with more brand partners, so we can really create engaged environments. And one of the interesting things is we're also bringing brand into movement centres and sports. We're doing a partnership with United Fitness brands that own Try Yoga or Core, so you'll see the brand coming into the spaces that are relevant, spending time. Because scent has a nice, very important role to play within yoga, within movement. It can bring you into your body, it can bring you out, and that's something that we really want to develop.
Something we discussed once was one of our, I don't know if you remember that, talking about that anatomē as a brand that is with you in those moments where you're looking after yourself, whether you are at your yoga place or traveling, and it's the moments that you are with yourself or explore or do something pleasant. And so if the idea that Brendan had, and I think you are establishing about, is that there's a formulation and a recipe for the anatomē range to be with you in all of those moments. That's very important.
Yeah, and I think even using this small, when we were working with some yoga practitioners, bringing scent into the class so that when you are at home and you are on holidays and you are relaxed, bringing the scent in. And I notice myself, like I play tennis, and so I joined a tennis ladder, and you're cycling across London to a tennis court, and then you're supposed to get on the court and start playing, and you're thinking, this is not going to work. And so it's trying to find, it's whatever we do, how do you find a moment to slow down and to pause, to be able to perform for.
Yeah,
It's hard work.
Yeah. No, that is amazing. Because I, when I went on holiday last year to Spain, I was spraying this particular fragrance around the whole holiday, and it was so lovely. It was just minimizer, and now I use that fragrance at home to create that same feeling that I had there on holiday. So it's like, yeah, similar thing.
And I think the world of natural scents, there's people here from the beauty press, so when we talk scent, it's really about naturals that you can breathe in. One of the things I noticed really is when I was at airports picking up favourite perfumes from old, going, oh my god, that's really cloying and it's full of synthetics. So getting that balance. So one of the things we do with our formulations is create an openness at the end of each scent. So it kind of defines the collection, both in the sleep and the perfumery. And so it's, when I was joking about spraying it around me, it is about being able to inhabit the scent and not go, oh. So that's one of the secrets of the time it takes. I think it took us 18 months to create the 6 perfumes. It's a long process. You might have seen the Halston show on Netflix. You go into a room and you spend forever with the perfumer, and then it's edition after edition, and you say that's not quite right, that's not open enough, and you have to spend time with the perfume, and then it just takes time. It's a long process.
Yeah.
But that's history of formulations and the history of use of scent within, from the ancient Greeks that we touch on through to Romans to the Middle Ages. That relationship with scent is something that through all globally all cultures engage with.
And how are you putting that across on digital? Because it's so difficult as journalists to write about fragrance, really, isn't it? Because we're trying to sort of convey not just the ingredients, but the feeling that it gives you as well. And how are you putting that across on your digital platforms to your community? And how are you?
I think that's the challenge. That's the challenge. We just launched the new anatomē website yesterday, I think. So there's a lot more opportunity across the platform for video, and one of the things we'll work now on is the storytelling.
Yes, so with fragrance, that's new because we're not talking about specific effects. So the story, I think first of all, is the story you just heard about how Brenda wanted to create fragrance. I think that's very important because it's a little bit different from trying to create a seductive scent. You can describe the notes, you can describe the ingredients. As I said, it's a product description, but it's quite difficult to. And then you have all these words about the open end of a fragrance. Not everyone can understand that. So what we're trying to do now is to capture people's reviews of it or how they feel about it, and then give them the customer experience as a third layer. So you have the ingredients, then you have the story behind it, you have the ingredients, and then you have how people feel with it, but a genuine conversation. So when Brendan created anatomē, he didn't want it to be a I tell you what to do kind of brand. So it's very much community focused and going to be in that fragrance, which is not what we have. As fragrance, we have a very seductive campaign. You have that, bit of sex, a bit of success, and money, and this and that, and just look at it and say, okay, I want that, I need that, so I'll passively buy it and try to put that on me.
Yeah.
Rather than having a conversation, saying, what does it feel like? It within the campaign. I think that's making it functional and performing from the get-go.
And I think education is key. So one of the things, being in these environments, whether it's a shop or working with an influencer, we've just started working with the partner for China, and it's really interesting. In the Chinese market, they're coming into the store now, and they don't necessarily have the historic engagement with perfume. They like lighter scents. So you're encouraging discovery. You mention a couple of things, and you're building up your knowledge. And then you might have someone coming in who knows everything about perfume, or they feel they do, and then you have to listen, and then you educate. So from a brand perspective, it's no different to the world of skincare we've seen in the 80s and the 90s. There's an education piece, and so it's digitally, how do you deliver that education? Because you're not sitting in front of a screen smelling it. So we would bring in sampling, we bring in those elements, but we have to go out into the world and create those experiences. And I think when I was leaning into that topic around sports people and performers, that's something that we really, over the next few years, will have ambition. How do you, we all want to learn from those leaders of, you know, I want to hear about a ballerina, her dedication to become such an amazing performer. And that's something I want to bring in. How do we connect it back into the brand? That's where my direction would be, away from the traditional digital experts who are thinking.
Amazing. I've got one final question for you actually. So where do you see wellbeing in the future? Like in 10 years from now in the beauty industry?
That's the big question. Where do I hope there's a lot more, we work towards more education on diet. You know, there's ambition of people cooking at home, a rainbow diet, thinking more about what, you know, one of the things I discovered was a lot of the culture here is ready-made meals, high salt content. People think they cook well, but they're only doing it 2 or 3 times a week. And I think we can't, there'll always be shortcuts. If you're a busy mom, you can't do everything every night. But I think from a well-being perspective, people maybe, will Instagram be so dominant in our lives? Will there be a movement away? I think we're starting to see people rejecting that in the evenings. I think there is more of a sense of self-care post-COVID, and I think maybe in the next 10 years we'll see people saying, no, actually I'm going to have this space. I understand what a sleep practice is, and I do hear that vocabulary coming into the store. An American lady said, yeah, I'm really thinking about my sleep practice, and she was really authoritative, and I was like, I like that. Whereas sometimes a British person will be like, you know, and what's your opinion?
So I think there's I'm going to use the methodology we applied there as the evolving concepts that we have, because they don't stay the same. Remember, not long ago, that we used to have McDonald's meals, and it was kind of cool. I remember being a child, and it was a nice thing to do. The younger generations now are kind of embarrassed of sitting at McDonald's. It's a bit like, oh God, I'm not looking after myself. It doesn't look very good. We have a little bit of a curve as well about with fast fashion, where you have, remember there was that moment that we just filled bags with clothes that were not expensive. Now we think twice before we do that, because we know that it's not great. And then I think there would be an evolution to many of the things that we're doing. One of them would be the status symbols that we carry with us. Sometimes you have a nice bag or a nice watch or a piece of jewelry, which means you've worked hard and succeeded, or it carries so much meaning. What about the meaning of feeling good, of looking happy, or having a healthy glow when you, that goes beyond beauty, that beauty that you can't just buy instantly? I think that has value. And as luxury items become so available, of course, for price tag keeps increasing, but well-being is priceless. For you to feel good, it's something that you can take control. And how beautiful is it that your status symbol is something that you can build yourself? It's an optimistic view, but I do believe in 10 years this will be
I love that.
to carry a healthy glow on your face. It will be worth more than any handbag you can have.
Yeah, and I think with anatomē, we want to Gabriel's point, hopefully the product becomes a byproduct of building a community, that we do have ambassadors that are speaking directly. And I would like to start as a digital platform. We'll bring in architecture, we'll bring in some of my passions. You know, I love to go to the opera and the theatre, and I'll go to things that I haven't enjoyed. But maybe we were just talking about a play at the Old Vic that was quite challenging, but it stays with you and you go to different things, and you were talking about a run. So I think that's something which, if we can bring into the brand and have this umbrella above the formulations that we've created, there'll be much more of a connection. And I think from creating, we talk about longevity as a brand, you need to have longevity. And I want to make sure that there's that clear purpose and longevity of the brand, rather than just focusing in on the now, going, well, I have wrinkles, how do I address that? It's a much more holistic conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really fascinating. Thank you so much to both of you. Does anybody have any questions for Brendan and Gabriel?
Have you thought about products in the workplace? So something you have in your desk at work.
We've just started to do that with small rubber balls and travel items that we've been bringing in. And I think that's the thing we now need to work on, is that directional element, because bringing in, for example, Focus perfume has got ginger, it's got lots of stimulants to fizz the brain, because when we eat spicy food, we are more awakened. So one of the things, to your point, will be how do you create a focus regime at the desk? How do you encourage someone to get up from the desk and stretch and not sit hovered down? And that's our job. So we do workshops, we do different events, and it's a really small team, so sometimes it's really hard to have the ambition to follow through on the ambition. But that's something that I'm really honing in on.
Slightly playing devil's advocate, but I think that sometimes well-being can put excessive pressure on people, so they look at this lifestyle, this curated house, and think, my God, I can never reach that. Especially, I'm a mother of 2 kids, and in my house it's a nightmare, and I dread going home because it's so messy. I have 2 guinea pigs. Do you think it's just horrible? Do you think you're also speaking to people like me? Does your book, or is there another book that needs to be written for the chaotic life?
I mean, you have a section related to that.
I did address that.
Yeah.
So since you've shared a little bit, when I was writing the book, Brendan kept on feeding me information, getting the files, but I was also organising and cataloguing it, and I've noticed that gap sometimes, and that's a gap in well-being. It can be patronising, it can be elitist, it can be, but this needs to fit everyone's lifestyle. For example, the bathroom practice. If you have kids,
They wee all over the floor.
but do you have that moment where you're taking your shower?
No, my
Perhaps.
son's in there speaking to me. Honestly, no, the problem is I get well-being and I try. There are things I do, but I think that a lot of lives they just cannot achieve this, and I find it impossible.
Yeah.
The only time I get to myself is when I cleanse at night and I close the door, and then my husband's saying, "Hurry up." So it's a nice. So I just think this lifestyle is the dream, but I think I'd only be able to take small bits of it.
But it's the small bits. I can't take all of them either,
No.
because sometimes I work 14 hours in one day, and when I was writing the book, I would have 2 glasses of wine between one chapter and the other because I was stressed out and not that well-being charged when you're trying to deliver a lot of information. But you need to focus on the fact that actually this is not right now, but you need to find the place. And if it's impossible, you need to go and say and have a conversation and say, okay, lovely husband, look after these horrid children. And I'm gonna take up some 5 to 10 minutes for myself now, and you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
If it's a bathroom practice, you're not gonna look in the mirror saying, oh God, I need a lift here. No, you're gonna look at yourself and say, don't look, cover the mirror if you don't want to face that beauty regime. It's not about beauty.
Yeah.
Make that moment for yourself, 2 extra minutes in the shower. What we're trying to tell people is that you can be aware of moments, because we all have them. Even if you're going in for a wee, lock yourself in there, take 2 minutes and breathe. Have your little oil with you. Cook something that you enjoy to cook. Have a glass of wine.
And I think
at an inappropriate time during the workday. Sometimes, because that to me is well-being sometimes. I'm sorry to forget it. But you know what I mean? It's inappropriate. I'm in the middle of my workday, but you know what? I'm going to sneak out, get into a bar and have a glass of wine. Nobody's looking, and have this moment to myself.
I think we were doing a pop-up in Paris, and I was really aware that the Parisians go for lunch for 3 courses, and no matter what level, you can have a prefix for 12. Not necessarily in Paris, I'm not sure the price, but they would take themselves off. Here in England, it's like grabbing a sandwich and back to the computer, and they're like, no, and then in the evening they'll eat less, and they'll maybe sleep better. But I think there is a section wellbeing buildings. We're very realistic about that. It's also about access to finance, so it's all well and good living a London life and being disconnected to what people can afford and access, but I think everybody can find quiet in their home or a minute. I'm from Ireland. I didn't grow up in a privileged environment. Your parents would say, go up the fields and disappear. And I think it's just being realistic and looking at achievable aspects within well-being, and not to beat yourself up. And I even, you know, I know we're a premium brand, but we don't expect you to make kimchi every day. That's why we have a probiotic. And I think we need to be realistic about what everyone can deliver in their home environment. And
No
about
guilt.
ease of use.
No guilt. No guilt about anything. We're not here to guilt anyone and to, you know, we're human, we're trying our best. No guilt. And just look at yourself. I think that's the best well-being tip. If we want to take, is no guilt about anything. If something is going wrong, we say, okay, let me fix it, but don't look back and say, oh my god, no. Or if the children need to be brought into the well-being conversation and say, listen, can we be quiet for 10 minutes? Can we learn that? Can we take it, you know, and enjoy the silence or enjoy the outdoors together in silence? Something that you can apply and bring your family along if they're there, because they are, and sometimes it's hard to find the me time. We tried not to treat well-being as this actually will read a little bit selfish, it's about you, but it's connected to what you said, Lisa. You need to feel good. You need to feel good. So the rest works for you.
When I became a mother, so I mean, it's, yeah, having a 7-year-old daughter and being a single parent is so hard, because I have to be there for her all the time. I'm trying to juggle a full-time job, I'm trying to juggle my house, my home, and you know, it's so difficult in so many areas. But when I had Eliza, I really realised that there were sacrifices that I had to make in my life to be able to be a good person and strong enough to go through life as a mother. And I'm not just talking about being a mum actually, but it's for everybody with a stressful job or different challenges in their lives. So you know, I stopped drinking 7 years ago when she was, well, when I was pregnant actually, for 8 years, and actually I really loved not drinking, and I loved the clarity, and I really felt like I had to do that to be strong and happy, and wake up in the morning and, like, you know, buzzing, and like, and it's just I have had to make sacrifices to you know, to feel good every day in my life. So I understand what you mean. It is so difficult. It is so difficult, but I do understand what makes me feel good, and I try to do that as much as I can.
For a car, I feel like the car's become the same haven for so many people.
Yeah.
I have. There's brands doing it, and
Sorry,
I think
what's the question?
Oh, right. I would rather you wear it on your skin. I think you can diffuse a lot of. It can actually make you woozy if you start diffusing too much essential oils. We did do electric diffusers in lockdown, and we've stopped because, you know, you can't control what people are doing, and essential oils are potent, and we make them in diluted form. So I'm aware of that as a thing, but I think I listen to my sister, and she's got 2 kids, and it's about changing the music, it's about doing other things alongside it. I think not creating too many shortcuts is really where I would be.
My question's around a bit more the science, or maybe it's the art, but how do you know when your perfume is good enough? Like, how do you decide that's enough notes?
It's like a crescendo in a piece of music. It takes a lot of time, and it's just something inherent where I had hoped to launch them in September of last year, and when we came back with the perfume, I didn't feel anything was correct, and so she was, you know, it's an irritating process, because I'm like, that's not good enough, we need to keep working on it, and then you get to an end point, and you, like, expression feels extremely well rounded, and then as a brand you will revisit the scent, you will go back and look at the formulation. You'll wait for feedback from the customers. So Chanel No. 5 is going to have smell, but obviously it's a more commercial fragrance today, but it will have evolved over the decades that it's been created. And so it's in more of an inherent knowledge and love of what you're doing. It's not something that can just be created from in a laboratory. And I think that's the difference between how few really exceptional perfume brands there are. And it's a bit like a performer in a great play. You recognize a great performance, and there's a lot in the middle. I'm not suggesting I think we've created a very special sense, but it's a work in progress.
Obviously, wellness is not gendered, but do you find, just interested with anatomy, are men being brought into the conversation? Are you finding there's lots of men coming into store and going online? Is it kind of 50-50, or is it more women, would you say?
I think beauty is quite traditional in England, with women being the dominant customer, and often making decisions for their home. Men are, I would say there's a 10 to 15% of the customer base that are quite independent of thought. So, for example, we do a focused supplement, and some guys have said this has really helped my ADD because it's got lion's mane, it's got reishi, it's got a blend of bees, and so I've been surprised that people have discovered solutions that work for them outside of the medical world. So you'll have people who are committed like that. But then yesterday was a good example. There was a lady from the Middle East, from Kuwait. Her friend had bought the oils and it said it changed her life. She came in to buy them, and then she said, my husband doesn't sleep, and he was 70, and she said he's covered in tobacco, he can't stop smoking. So he came in and he was a little bit, and I said, are you really going to do oils before you go to bed, or are you going to take a supplement? And so we came up with a regime that was relevant, and he liked the Somali frankincense, and I was like, right, you need to overdose on the frankincense. And she said, he just smells of tobacco. And you know, it was more of a household decision. I think, I don't have children, so it's to your point, it's easy for me. But I see friends. I've seen some friends who have extreme challenges with their children, and I see others, and it's about meal times. It's about listening and about connection. So the men are brought in different ways into the brand, and I think we have a lot of work to do across the brand on education.
Is it fair to say they become really loyal? Because once you solve a problem, I think the male customer, because we've heard a little bit of that, because that changed my life, they come back and they bring a friend, because it's much more about the experience. Well, whilst they're less open to the initial education, once you get them in, they're very responsive as customers.
They're very responsive, and then there's a healthy skepticism in the UK. Because they like to say, will it work? And it's not going to happen, and then you discover they come in quite quickly. But I was chatting to Globetrotter, and they were saying it takes 18 months for someone from looking versus a suitcase to buying a suitcase. They watch it for a long time. So it's no different.
Maybe they're saving up every month.
Well, yeah. But I was wondering, what is the decision making in beauty? I mean, what's your experience do you see a shift within the female customer, male customer coming into beauty and skincare today?
I mean, I don't write about male products. I guess so, slightly more. What are your guys' thoughts? I don't really know.
Most of the media is, it's just a statement of fact that it's kind of from a female perspective, because it's mostly written by females.
There's a lack of men's publications now. I mean, I created a brand right off London, and so we spoke to different constituencies of men. There was the weekend dad customer with his son. There was the independent guy on a Tuesday. Then at Christmas, there was the heteronormative couple coming in, and she's buying a gift for her husband or for her son, and then we would have our gay constituency. So there's a whole blend that came in. I hear men saying, well, where do you go now for advice? I'm not sure people are reading GQ in the same way that they were, and a lot of them are getting it through TikTok. and other social platforms. You know, a girl came in the other day with her mom, and she was American, and she said, do you fish oil? It really reduces cortisol levels. And I was like, where on earth did you get that from? And you cannot in the moment go, well, you're wrong. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. And her mom bought things, and she was like, I really want the fish oil. And I said to mom, where did she hear that? And she said, oh, some TikTok. And I said, oh, okay. So I think that's the challenge is we can't be preachy, we have to listen. And maybe today you don't convert that person, but I think it's interesting where men will continue to get information from. But I think podcasts and audio is becoming even more popular now, and it seems to be a place where we're going for information.
I hope so.
I also find that from my experience with my partner, I feel like the segue for men and it's like wellness comes from, like, my partner loves like natural, like good food, and then from that we started moving on to like, oh, like becoming more aware, and he'll get like a natural deodorant, and then I feel like it's only a matter of time before they start to, but I feel like it's happening, but I feel like it's coming through the necessities first, and then it will kind of move on to like the extra like rituals and things like that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. The generation behind me don't drink as excessively as we would have on a Thursday and Friday. And it's about going to 2 gym classes, maybe, or it's, you know, I look at people in the farmers' markets and I'm like, goodness me, you know, I was looking at a guy and a girl, or it doesn't really matter, but they had their toad and the leaks were popping out, and I was thinking, this is a different way of living. And so skincare, I used to buy in the 90s Neil's Yard, which is a great brand, great formulas, and we're exploring that in our own skincare, those natural extracts which actually lean into food, rosemary, thyme, avocado, and so all of those ingredients coming through into skincare. And I do think there's a generation now interested in natural remedies, and that's something that it's an instinct, I think, is happening. But it comes in cycles, you know. Neil's Yard, whereas everyone was going to Neil's Yard to get teas and beautiful skin cream, and then it became more commercial. There was a pull away. Now there's a certain conversation in beauty, and I think
there's an evolution as well in beauty for men. When we look at it, I get so many adverts for fillers, and you see these guys filling their faces and starting to get the overly filled and super filled and plumped look that women are kind of regretting now, and they're dissolving them now as we go. And then men are a little bit behind on that, and they're just experimenting with that. Maybe it's a little curve as well, that they say, actually, I don't need all this filler, but sometimes I could feel better, and I could improve. I think the curve that women are doing this, and men are just lagging behind a little bit, so there's that. I do believe in that. Just, you know, they're getting the lips now, and you know, the regret will come, but perhaps there's too much. Let me balance it. Let me get to the middle of it where I'm comfortable, and it's all trends, and they come and go.
But I think lastly, just confidence is really important. And we can mask ourselves in whether it's makeup, or we can be concerned about going bald. I never had those issues. But I would see, and I see it from when it was men's grooming, I could see it. It's about confidence. And confidence to walk out with no makeup for some people would be a huge challenge. Confidence to say no. I had 2 glasses, I'm done. And how do you find confidence and well-being is a really important anchor.
Self-esteem, yeah. Great, well, thank you so much. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, and thank you for coming. Isabella would love, who has a camera, if anyone wanted to say what well-being means to them, we would love you to say that on camera. And I think please discover our perfumes, and hopefully you'll see us emerging internationally. But it's a work in progress, and as a small business, you just have to keep building. And I want to thank Gabriel for his collaboration on the book, which has been fantastic, and Lisa for coming today. and making time for us all. And hopefully, you know, it's a broad topic, but I hope that you all got something from that. And in our team, we have Fran at the back, who's in charge of our global partnerships, and Judy, who is the anchor at anatomē, who is busy also making health and other formulations. So it's not just me, it's a team, so speaking to other people and understanding what we do is really important. It takes a team to make a brand and to create a moment, so that's important to note. And thanks for Maslows for hosting us today.
And get in touch if you have questions or anything you want to discuss about these. You know, anatomē is a great place to talk well-being, or you can talk about the story behind the book, or if you've read the book and you have doubts or want to challenge us on something, by all means, that helps as well.
Well, thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.